Welcome to everyone to the Innovations and Partnerships Committee meeting for the 8th of November 2022. My name's Laurie Mifsud. I'm the Director of Corporate Services and I will chair the beginning of this meeting until a chair is elected to the committee. Hawkesbury City Council acknowledges the Darug and Darkinjung people as the traditional custodians of the land of the Hawkesbury. We pay respect to all elders past, present and emerging and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first persons of the country. Committee members and members of the public attending the meeting in council chambers are advised that in the event of an emergency, you'll be asked to proceed in an orderly manner to the nearest exit following the guidance of our warden. We'd also like to advise that meetings of the council committees are recorded. In the terms of the Privacy and Personal Information Protection Act, this may involve the recording of personal information provided at the time of the meeting. The recordings are made to assist staff in compiling the minutes of the meeting and to enable the podcasting of council committee meetings. The provision of any information that is recorded is voluntary. If any person does not wish to be recorded, they should not address or request to address the meeting. The recordings may be made available to other persons where such access is in accordance with the relevant regulations. The recordings are stored in Council's records management system. For the benefit of those persons who will be addressing the committee, it's expected that you'll refrain from making any insult, allegation or personal reflection against any person present or not at this meeting. This request relates to both your address to the meeting and any answers given in response to questions from the committee. As a courtesy to others, it's requested that mobile phones either be turned off or turned to silent. There's no apologies for all councillors in attendance, so there's no apologies. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, no declarations of interest. The first item on the agenda is the election of chairperson for this committee for the following 12 months. As this is the first meeting of the Innovations and Partnerships Committee in this council term, we will now move on to the election of a chairperson. I will conduct the election and therefore call for any nominations for the chairpersons of the committee. Okay. Councillor Connolly, do you accept that nomination? Thank you. Any other nominations? Okay, in that case, I declare Councillor Connolly to be the chairperson of the Innovations and Partnership Committee. I'll now hand over to Councillor Connolly to chair the balance of the meeting.
Okay. Can I do it from here? Or?
Yeah.
Yep. So next item is item 2, economic investment.
Sorry, we probably deal with the minutes as well.
Sorry, the minutes, yes. Actually, I did actually, we've got the minutes of the previous meeting. I thought it might be opportune, I don't know if it's strictly in the code of meeting practice, but to ask the member for Macquarie for an update on the current situation regarding mobile coverage at Bilpin and in the remote areas of the Hawkesbury, given the environment has changed somewhat since we got this response. I don't know if someone wanted to move to accept the minutes and make that request. Well, I think we can. I don't think you have to necessarily have been at the meeting to move the minutes. I was at that meeting, and I'm happy to confirm they're correct. I guess it's up to the committee to specify something.
I was at the meeting, so if that's a procedural necessity, I'm happy to move that.
Thank you. So move Councillor Zamprogno, seconded Councillor Weigel. So you're happy with that addition that we're also asking for that update?
Yes.
Yep. Any further discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare that carried. Next item is item 2, economic investment and tourism. Council has asked the committee to look at whether or not we need any more committees in this regard, and obviously we've been given a report by council staff showing all the different variations of committees and business activities we have already done. So I guess it's open for discussion.
Can I ask a question about the proposed reference group and exactly how that would function? Who would it report to? And, who would be on it? Please.
Megan?
Yeah, thank you. Look, staff have reviewed similar working groups or committees in other councils. Essentially, there are some outlines in there in terms of what the actual the terms of reference of a working group might look like. And it obviously does make provision for representatives of the local business community. But I guess as a way of assuring that that their interests were representative broadly of the business community, they are built into the constitutions. In terms of the structure of the committee, I guess that's for the determination of this committee as to whether it would be a subcommittee of the Innovation and Partnerships Committee or whether there was a resolution to actually form it as a standalone working group, as I think a standalone committee, which may have been part of the original resolution in terms of exploring. So the detail in this report really made recommendation more around the structure, how constitution of a working group should really outline its purpose. And I think importantly, when we reviewed similar structures at other councils, economic working groups were formed either with the explicit instruction of developing a strategy or to implement a strategy that had already been adopted by council. I guess that also provided some surety that representatives of that group had the mandate of undertaking consultation or overseeing implementation of a strategy that represented the broad interests of the economic community rather than their individual interests as business owners.
Follow-up question, if I might. So there's really no recommendation in here whether it should be a working group of this committee or a separate reference group. It doesn't actually recommend one or the other, as far as I can see, unless I've missed it.
Just while you're looking for that, just a complimentary question to that one. Is it the couldn't quite work out, is it the recommendation of staff that this is necessary and would be helpful? Or is this the recommendation that if we wanted to have a committee, this is how we should have it? I guess what I'm asking is this something that is actually likely to be meaningful in the view of staff, or is it an option if we think it's meaningful?
Oh, look, it's probably an option. So whether this committee in its current form actually saw that it had the capacity, if you like, to oversee implementation of the destination management plan, which is our adopted strategy, or whether this committee believes that input from local businesses would actually be relevant or assist in that process. As I said, we've already undertaken broad consultation and council's adopted the plan and agrees that essentially that's fundamentally our priorities in terms of economic development, and the intention of the detail in the report was really to provide some scope in terms of both the regional and local activities that we're currently undertaking, but as well as the various mechanisms that we have for promoting local business, employment and tourism. Whether this committee and representatives of the committee feel that that would be embellished by additional input at this stage, given that the recommendation is really that either this committee or a subcommittee would have the explicit function of implementing the destination management plan, or whether this committee feels that the plan in and of itself is detailed enough and could be implemented by staff without that additional oversight, I guess is up for determination. The recommendation, though, would absolutely be that if we were looking at formalising another subgroup, if you like, that's representative of the local business community, that their function would be to oversee implementation of the adopted plan, and that the terms of reference would be structured in such a way that it really ensured that we're managing perceived conflict of interests, and also that we were attracting people with the expectation that they would have broad representation rather than specific interest.
Thank you. Good. Deputy Mayor.
A comment, if I might. Based on your answer, I would suggest that the way the committees are now set up, that forming a working group that reports to this committee would be the way to go. But that is just my personal belief. If you want me to move that as a motion, I can, but it's up for discussion, of course. Yes.
Thanks. If you're okay, I'd be more inclined if we can see if we can get a consensus and then stick a motion at the end. I mean, my view would be in particular in relation to the business recovery plan. I actually would prefer to get an update or some sort of report that shows, if it's possible, where each of these actions in the report is already scheduled in our operational plan or delivery program, or in some cases already completed. And then we might be able to better target which actions actually could use the benefit of broader consultation, and which actions are obviously, there's quite a few that are quite set and specific already. But that's just my view, that the destination management plan is obviously something we've only just adopted. But I didn't really have a vision as to how a committee would implement that, but open to it if someone else does. Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I wouldn't put another layer of, for better word, bureaucracy in it if we can make the decision, all the staff can do it. But I'm quite happy to take expert advice from other areas within the LGA to just assist us to help manage this and help you manage it as well. So I'm fine with you. Thanks, man.
Bill, if you want to say anything, feel free to jump up because I can't see you. So just a bit of thought. Yep. So, okay.
I was also going to suggest we ask our member of the public if he has an opinion on this, the way we set this up.
Feel
Which,
free.
as a member of public, do you see either of those alternatives as being more approachable, or doesn't matter to you? Doesn't.
Fairly agnostic about the
Okay,
process.
yep.
I'm not used to sort of more based on more environmental.
Yep.
But, it seems fine at my end. I'm not a business person. So.
Yep.
Well, I was just going to say, if it's not working for us, we can always come back and review it again, can't we?
So
You know,
my-
so-
Sorry. So my suggestion would be that if someone wanted to, we put a motion up that we get a report back to this committee, giving us a report back to this committee outlining where each of the actions identified in the business recovery plan is currently up to, so that the committee can determine whether council should get further engagement with the business committee on any of the actions.
Yes, I'll second that.
You move it? Yep. The
Yes.
seconder.
I'm just concerned about the timeline. Can I ask, that's going to add a bit of time to the whole process. How does that fit in with the?
That would be
And
linked to
is
our
there- is
operational
there-
plan.
Is there a standard, sorry, I'm throwing lots of questions at you, but is there a standard reporting mechanism in this plan as to when this is going to be reported back to council, or is there an update scheduled?
Sorry, in terms of the business recovery plan?
Yes, yep.
Yes, yeah, I believe that that's actually reported in terms of the IPNR framework. So we would be reporting that on a 6-monthly basis, progress on implementing that plan. Yes, yep.
when does that come up? Next month?
I think that would be in the early part of next year.
I mean, whether it's a report or whether we ask the manager responsible or the director responsible just to give us a verbal update on each item with some preparation, obviously, rather than on the spot. So that we,
Sorry, but
Yeah.
not being difficult. I'm just
Mm.
worried that that's going to take 3 months or something, and then suddenly you're going to have to do this report and you've only got 2 weeks to do it.
Mm.
That's my concern.
Okay. yeah, I mean, I'd be probably find that more engaging if that's possible.
Oh, look, getting a status on the update of
Yeah.
implementation, it won't take any significant amount of time. That's been something, it was that was initially funded as part of the bushfire recovery funding. It was directly allocated to council. So that was, I guess, quite compressed in terms of time, and there were pretty clear milestones, in terms of delivery of actions within that plan. So we could certainly provide an update to councillors in a fairly timely manner in whichever format you find most suitable.
All right, so we've got a motion for a report back to the committee. Maybe we just change our motion to say a verbal or written report. But leave it up to staff to decide what's easier
Yes.
to the next meeting of the committee.
Yes, I'm happy with
Everyone
that.
okay with
Yes.
Yep, all right, put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
So that carried unanimously. And then the next item is heavy vehicle movement investigation in the Hawkesbury local government area.
found this quite interesting, but I think that their movements are for water delivery and agritourism and building equipment, and I think their movements are quite necessary, aren't they?
Yep, certainly I was happy with the recommendation from staff. I couldn't see anything else we could add, but
But someone from the staff could just try and elaborate on what sort of effect it would have on the next transport asset management plan. What options would it lead to? Would it mean that we put up signs saying B doubles can't go here, or what would the outcome be?
Through you, Chair. One of the considerations in the asset management plan is demand management, which essentially looks at how council can influence the demand on the services produced by the asset. I wouldn't suggest that this next iteration of the asset management plan is going to be a thorough or exhaustive or take a thorough or exhaustive approach to demand management for heavy vehicles, but it can certainly consider the role that regulation on our roads plays to try and avoid situations where there is substantiated rat running of heavy vehicles through the regulatory controls at our disposal.
thank you.
I'm having a questioning day. The other thing that people have talked about with trucks is the noise that they make, especially braking. And this report doesn't seem to address that, does it? Or if I missed that again.
Through you, Chair, no, it doesn't address braking. The focus of this report was really on the impact of heavy vehicles on the asset, on the physical road network, as opposed to the impacts on the amenity or the environment.
Comment from Director of Infrastructure Services.
If I could answer that. So we did report that through local traffic, probably back in about 2019, 2020, where we looked at the feasibility of moving the trucks away from the Ham Common car park. So we're still working on the arrangements or rearranging some of the parking there. We have spoken with the transport providers as well in relation to, like, there was Coles and a few others that were using B doubles and they were taking off part of the truck to go and deliver. So something we have worked with them on that. But at this stage, we're just still working through how we would reutilize that parking area. And once that's formalized, then that parking would be moved out of there.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Nathan?
Yeah, the most common representation that comes my way about heavy vehicle movement and the associated noise and additional wear and tear on the roads relates to specific operators, specific instances. So trucks carrying aggregate from a mine, whether it's out past Cat Eye or up the Putty Road or something like that. And normally that comes with an appeal to not only quantify whether this is out of proportion for the area. This study seems to think that it falls within the norms, fair enough, but then kind of asks us to engage with specific operators to say, look, can you please confine your vehicle movements to certain hours, or can you please not rat run through Pitt Town? And I was hopeful that since we commenced this process at the beginning of 2018 via a mayoral minute, and which now more than 4 years later, that we could see there's a lot of work that's gone into this, but for me, it doesn't answer the fundamental question. And that is, well, it's nice to know where the traffic is, but if there's just a few specific operators that are responsible for the bulk of heavy vehicle movement, whether it's because of urban development or mining or whatever, could we approach those where those specific instances arise and to say, can we please treat local residents kindly by limiting your hours or limiting the roads that you choose to drive on for the sake of amenity? I know that it's very difficult to impose any blanket ban in terms of weight or curfew or anything like that. I know we can't do that, but I think residents were looking for something to be done in specific instances. Comment?
Yeah, certainly. So council's role is confined to the restrictions that it can put on the road environment. We, I suppose, have rekindled our relationship with the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator and met with them recently. Now that was only, or would have only been in its infancy in 2018 or relative infancy. And it's the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator which regulates essentially all vehicles other than the general access vehicle, which is referred to in the report, and generally a 19-metre articulated truck. A lot of those truck and dogs that you refer to, particularly associated with the truck, with the quarry operations, a lot of them are what are called prescribed, performance-based standard vehicles. And the NHVR do have a regulatory role to play in introducing controls on their movement and so forth. So there may be, if we can have some specifics, there may be an opportunity to engage with the NHVR to look at how we can exert some influence either through a regulatory approach or a relationship approach with those specific providers or haulage companies.
Yeah, I'm heartened by that answer, because I'm looking for something practical that honours the intent of residents when they come to us and they say, oh, it's terrible. And we say, well, yes, but generally council has no role in imposing either a weight limit or a curfew. These are public roads. It is what it is. And then they say, no, it's these particular operators relating to either a quarry or an urban development. People on our side of Boundary Road are coming to me regularly and saying, oh, all of the traffic movements that we're enduring because of the development on the other side of Boundary Road, can't we have a word with those developers? Can't we have a word with Hillshire Council? Can't somebody do something? So I would suggest that if we mind our customer service database for representations made to council about specific instances, we can probably pretty quickly narrow down that we're talking about specific operators. And if you're saying that you're looking for specifics, I think that's where we'll find them. And I think we can, if the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator can play a part, I think we should engage them. And I'm wondering whether we could incorporate that as an action item into our resolution for this business item. Otherwise, we have yet another extensive report that we receive and note, and the work just disappears into a hole. And that displeases me.
So what exactly would you want to include?
I'm reaching for an appropriate form of words, and I'm happy to take counsel here. So we've got a recommendation in 3 parts. We could potentially add a point 4, that there be a review of I don't know what the relevant database is, but certainly where representations have been received by council from residents complaining about heavy vehicle movement or heavy vehicle noise, is that if a brief analysis of that could yield the identity of particular operators or particular locales, or that where it's identified that that the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator could have some positive role, is that we engage on that basis. I've worded that very clumsily. Can we refine that?
Yeah, I reckon we could. So just to clarify, just some advice from the Director of Structural Services, do you think that would be, is the regulator going to do anything with that information?
Look, it's been my experience in the past that where there is a demonstrable negative impact either on infrastructure or and particularly road safety, amenity, I have to admit, hasn't been something that they've, in my experience, have acted on. But where there's a demonstrable link between the damage to the road, particular operators, they do have quite a strong appetite to engage with operators, that they have engaged and have acted. I'm unaware of any regulatory action and the success or otherwise. But certainly in my experience, they've been keen to establish relationships and use those relationships to try and bring about outcomes which suit both the residents, the local road authority in terms of protecting the asset and the operator's economic imperatives.
So could we put a point in our motion that says that council should call for a report identifying locations that might be appropriate for further advocacy? So we skip the committee, skip it coming back to the committee again.
I'm just leery of commissioning yet another report with an open-ended action item list. I mean, I'd prefer something simple, like council engages with particular heavy vehicle operators and the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator to advocate for heavy vehicle movements that are sympathetic or sensitive to the needs of Hawkesbury residents. Again, I'm groping towards this clumsily.
And how would you know if that was done or not?
True. Well, I mean, it leaves it up to staff and just signals our general intent that we want that engagement to occur. I mean, if you want it to be in the form of a report that's further reported back to us or to the chamber, I have no objection to doing that. It's just extra work for staff. It's just a case of whether we trust that staff have picked up what our intent is here and can just get on with it, or whether we need them to report that back to us.
Any comments from anyone?
Look, if I can provide a comment, my advice would be to leave it to the officer level. We've you know, in my time here, I've engaged a number of times with the NHVR, and it's something that we can take up at that officer level, either through the interrogation of our CRM, our customer request management system, or indeed utilizing our local knowledge. And I think certainly throughout the floods, we developed a pretty reasonable handle. The impacts on our local road network with the ferries down. Again, we had some good engagement with Transport for New South Wales and local operators. So I think there's enough information and enough of a framework, and certainly picking up the intent of the discussion this afternoon to proceed on that basis.
Through you, Mr. Carroll, I'm satisfied by that answer, and I'm simply looking for something that we can take back to the community that make representations to us, and to say we understand the impacts to amenity, the increased wear and tear to our road network that often originates outside our road network, development that's adjacent to the Hawkesbury, that they're using our roads. And if we can say that we're engaging with the appropriate regulator and we're identifying those areas that are of greatest concern, and I'm thinking particularly Pitttown, but there are others, I'm sure, and that regulator is going to be well informed of the impact to our roads on our behalf, and the impact to amenity of our residents, then I'm happy to leave that to the officers.
Okay.
Question, if I might. Many of the big companies that do the mining, etc., have a DA to do that, and the DA gives them a time in which the trucks can move. Many of the big businesses have that as well. Is there any way we can look at maybe sampling a few companies and saying you're not sticking to your regular times that you're supposed to have, or is that too much of a task?
Proactive compliance. Yeah.
Yeah.
To the director.
Sampling, I said,
Yeah.
not standing and watching every truck, but you know.
The answer is, look, it would be possible in terms of assessing operation against conditions. Whether that is achievable with the current staffing constraints, I need to be honest, it's probably unrealistic that we would be able to achieve that within the next 3 months.
If we did what Councillor Zamprogno was saying and go back through our complaints, though, we might have some kind of pattern there which leads us to certain companies that we could perhaps target. Would that, are you still suggesting we go back and look at the complaints, or is that fallen off the table now?
I was simply suggesting that that's potentially a source of data we could mine to get some sense of a trend about where the pressure points are.
Yep.
You know, I hear a lot from Pitt Town, but that's just because I'm in that area. I know that many DAs have hours of operation constraints, but that's only hours of operation for the trucks on that site. It says nothing about the operation of trucks in the adjacent area as they're picking material up or ferrying it around. There might be a linkage, but it's a very loose one.
Okay. And the other thing is noise reduction. Some of our roads like George Street, I believe, is a state road. Is that right? I think it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Can we contact RMS and ask them to consider putting in some noise reduction on roads such as that?
Yeah, we can certainly contact RMS or Transport for New South Wales and make that request.
Because I think most of the complaints I've had come from that stretch of road between say where the RSL club is down to where you turn into Bligh Park, that stretch. And I think that is a state government stretch of road. So I don't know what they do, maybe some well-planted bushes or big ugly wall or something, but you know, ask them to look at it. Thank you.
Is there anything further? Or we're not adding anything? That was our conclusion.
I just wanted to ensure that staff had a form of words that was sane relating to the additional point in the motion.
Okay, well, I don't know that we were that clear about that. So
Do
is
we
he?
want to ask Mr. Snedden if he's got any input into this one?
Anything to add?
Oh, regarding trucks.
Yeah.
Heavy vehicle.
Standard thing is minimise or no air braking.
Mm.
I hear that my place near the Church Street near the swimming pool, and it's exhaust brakes. That's one of the biggest problems. They're very effective, but also a hell of a noise.
Mm.
But there are quite a few signs around various places around Sydney, but also that would be another opportunity. It's just the way you operate the truck in general.
Can we include that, please?
Can I suggest that staff might just take that as a note and note that the kind of advocacy that we're making to the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator includes not only impacts to amenity and to road damage, but also noise through air braking.
So what if we went for a 0.4 that council use this report to continue advocacy through state agencies and the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator to what? Yeah, to address amenity impacts of heavy vehicles.
Brakes, they are exhaust brakes.
Yes.
You turn the fuel off to the diesel engine and you just run against compression and then all that noise goes. Yeah. Air brakes typically are compressed air braking, the normal brakes on the truck. And if you turn the exhaust brakes off, you have to drive more carefully because you don't have that big slam against the wall when you lift your foot off the throttle.
I misspoke. My knowledge of truck vernacular is lacking, evidently.
Did someone get that motion down? I just read out. Yep.
We have it on tape, so we'll be able to do that.
So if everyone's happy with that, then we'll put that motion. All those in favour? Declare that carried unanimously. That was our final item of business. I guess the end.
Mr. Snedden wanted to address some issue.
No, I think that was outside of the
Outside,
committee. Yeah. I think though we might just take the opportunity to say that we probably don't want to leave it too long for the next meeting of the committee, just to finalise what we're doing with the business recovery plan, get that update and work out what to do next. Yep. Thank you, everyone.